You're watching TVC Breakfast. So on the 8th of September this year, activities in Britain and many other countries were disrupted after the news spread about the Queen's death. Now, Queen Elizabeth II, who had been on the throne for 70 years, will now be a memory for her family and loved ones. In several African countries, the official flags have been at half-mast as a sign of honor for the late monarch. And later today, the Queen's coffin will journey down to London's Buckingham Palace and then to Westminster Hall, where the Queen will lie in state for 4 days. It's believed that thousands of people will continue to troop down to various places where the late Queen's body will make an appearance, as well as attend the funeral slated for Monday next week. And we have joining us in the studio now a former UK Conservative Party politician, Bola Oba. It's good to have you again with us. Welcome.
Pleasure is all mine.
The red cap chief. You'll be in Conservative in Britain, and you want to become radical in Nigeria.
I've never claimed to be radical. In fact, one of the things that pisses me off is to call me a comrade. Oba.
I will never call you a comrade, but you tend to sound radical. Try to sound leftist, and then you are conservative in America. That's double consciousness.
In the UK.
Welfareist.
You have to be ideologically sound.
Welfareist, because, come to think of it, as we speak now, the greatest ideological contention the Conservative Party has is that it's a party that claims to be in support of small government in an era of big government.
Well, governments have always been big. That's one of the illusions of conservatism. They always pretend that they are small they have a small government, but they're always big. One of the people that had the biggest government in America is Ronald Reagan.
Indeed.
Yeah, so it's actually ideological hypocrisy.
Fantastic. Indeed, even Trump. Even
Trump is big.
The
government is naturally big.
Because at some point
the government is small.
The government must interface with the challenges of the people and help to move the people from a circumstance that is extenuating to something that is...
That's how they deceive everybody. They have big government, they have big business, and then they say they want everything small, and then they get big.
I came here for the Queen.
This just I'm just testing the waters.
Nice intro. And this conversation is about the Queen, but of course we can make room for small talk. But talking about the persona of the Queen, some have said someone many people, millions of people, billions of people around the world never met, yet chose to forgive and forget her feelings. Someone has even said, after 70 years on the throne, it's normal. No one can be a saint for that long time, on the throne. But when you think about how the world has been enamored by Queen, even in her death, how do you reason along these lines?
It's natural. It's natural because this was a woman whose image must have appeared on the largest number of surfaces on the face of the earth. The British monarchy is a mystery of a sort. The monarch is supposed to be high there, and yet you have the coin in your hand to buy potatoes and bananas. You have an image or the image of the monarch there. So it's natural for people to... My wife was crying like a baby, and I was telling her, Alajaku, your own mother, why would you be? But you know what? There is a degree of emotion that is built when you keep seeing something regularly, when you keep hearing somebody's story regularly, and a part of you is attached to...
But we say our parents, because at the point I even had to, beat myself out of guilt that, like you said, my family, I lost a father last year, and I was like, okay. So, but then the Queen has passed on, and then emotions, goosebumps, coming over once, but I never met her.
You needed not to have met her, to be honest with you. It's just that in you not physically not have met her, you have subconsciously and subliminally taking in so many images of our persona. you know, on the British coins, on the British notes, on just about anything that wants to define royalty.
So
she became the iconic face.
Right. So not like she was forced on us, but like a rub-off. Is that how you would call it?
The psychology of it, we would probably
We may never know.
Well, how would you say
may
she was
never-
not forced on us? When you go everywhere, you see her. You go here, you see her.
Right.
Yes, forced on us. I remember one time, the first time I got to England, I was at the hotel and I was trying to make a payment. I think I had a rumpled bill.
All right.
And the man across the counter was cross that I was defacing the Queen, the face of the Queen. And I was really disgusted that, come on, I came here to buy something, like my money is
With your
legitimate.
money.
What is wrong? What is wrong? At that moment, the money was mine. I could do what, if I wanted to tear it, I could tear it. So it shows the essence of mystique that they brought to that office, or to that position, and so on. But I wonder, I've talked about this all the while, that look, it's one thing to talk of the Queen as a very decent, beautiful
Defined,
woman
right.
who came to Nigeria and so on and so forth. But how do you really separate her from the iniquities of the royals, especially what they did to us here in Nigeria, in Africa? How do you really enjoy all the ceremonies, which is based on the fatuous grandeur of an institution?
I am not particularly perturbed because a part of you is American, and I know in the backdrop of Professor Anyan's
Well, it's not about me. I'm talking about you.
I said in the backdrop of Professor Anyan's tweet and the kerfuffle and the furore and the listen. Look, let's be very honest with ourselves. The mystery of the British constitutional monarchy is such that a human persona represents an institution that is in its history very global, with a large global empire and with many. Look, the Queen went up a tree as a princess. In Kenya, came down a queen.
A queen.
Because just about when she went up the tree with the romantic husband, at about the same time, her father passed in England, and when she came down, she was greeted as Her Majesty the Queen, because that's the tradition automatically.
She came down to soar.
and yet, in that between that 1952, when she ascended the throne, or when she acceded the throne, automatically in Kenya to the early 1960s, to Kenya's independence, the Mau happened,
right.
and a lot of people were dehumanized, disgraced, and shabbily treated. Indeed, physically abused. Yeah. Now, Professor Anya, some people were angry with her, and I was on a show this Sunday, and I said, you know what? Let's give it to the lady. I wouldn't have done what she did, but in the backdrop of the fact that she is a classical Biafran girl. She was born and about the age of many of the children that we saw across the world bearing the physiology of a kwashiorkor, children. And look, this lady vented out her anger. Bezos felt disappointed that she could, in the backdrop of the culture of wokeism that has overtaken America now, she has an agenda. But we must remember that it was the same images of the Biafran children that Steve Jobs saw and said he would never believed in God all his life anymore, because for him, he felt there could never be a God that would allow the travesty that happened in Biafra to those children. That's why he never believed in God. And somebody was saying, hey, but that was a joke. But you carry an apple. You carry Mac products. You see, life is such that sometimes you decide to choose which. It was politely lambasting me earlier on that I was a conservative in England. You know why I joined the Conservative Party then, apart from the fact that I was doing part-time law and I wanted to make sure that I get to serve in a law firm, and many of the successful lawyers were listening. One of the reasons I joined the Conservative Party then was that the Conservative Party was yet then to allow homosexuality as a policy of government. They were against it. And I used to joke when people would ask me, Bola, you, of all people, you want to join the Conservative Party, you are even contesting on the platform of the Conservative Party. And I would say, you know, would you want me to call Iyeleja in Lagos and be telling Iyeleja, I want to join party council or that I have now joined the party where, but you know what, the world is changing. Even the Conservative Party has changed. Now, in the context of that, his question is legitimate. But you know what? The Queen, God bless her soul wherever she is, but the British monarchy still has a place in the world. And the Commonwealth is the best example of it.
Yeah, the Commonwealth example is a better example of it. I don't think you really answered my question. How do you navigate those two consciousnesses? You know, the woman is nice, but she's living an idle life, or she lived an idle life.
It wasn't quite
of forced activity.
It wasn't quite
when you have money. Hold on, let me explain. I'm sure you've read Thorstein Veblen, The Theory of the Leisure Class. You make a lot of money, and then you want to start to do good. You know, I stole money from everybody in the neighborhood. I forced all of them, and suddenly I'm now a Father Christmas. Oh, you are sick. Oh, take this. Go to the hospital. I give you money. Oh, you need school fees. I give you. But what you have done, you've stolen everybody's money, and you are trying to look like you are not a nice guy. And you are like, now they can tell themselves what they want to do. I cannot go and join the army. When I join the army, everybody is Secret Service. Don't make sure he gets into trouble. Or if there's anything, you must protect him. Yeah, but I'm brave. I'm in the army. I wear uniforms. You know, this is kind of grandiose hypocrisy, and you know, very Pharisaic morality that they are imposing on us. You know, there are stories. There are stories, but we know the story of England. I know you know the story of England. You know that the purpose. I'm not finished. You know that the monarchy itself went through a period, a nice long period of history where even this Charles I, there was Charles I, who was beheaded. Yeah. Because he was too conservative, he turned the old throne into a kind of
there was a sort of a revolution.
Yes, Oliver Cromwell was the one. Oliver Cromwell and his army who went to Scotland and all came back, and it was like the royalists against the parliament. Yeah. Then he has Charles II, who had some similarities in lifestyle with what this Charles used to be. I mean, he was a hedonist. He had a lot of story of debauchery with women and so on. In fact, that one had 12 illegitimate children, but he had none from marriage. You know, that's Charles II. So now we have Charles III, who is trying who has something of Charles I and something of Charles II.
May his reign be peaceful and blissful.
And he has said he would serve. He had said his reign like his mother's.
He
must have learned
service. We have this something Goma. The Sarkin Goma, something. They sometimes used to say to him that you have 10 kings, but you have 10 different kinds of government. So everybody brings. And
that is why the image. That is why the public image of the monarch, Queen Elizabeth was facing the right hand side in her pictures. King Charles III must face the left hand, and since the 17th century, that is an indication that in a new reign, the new monarch can live to his or her own disposition.
But you won't agree with me that you cannot wish a person. I am not that kind of person. I can't go as far as Uju to say, I wish you an excruciating death. You don't wish people
I couldn't have
excruciating
done.
death.
I couldn't
Because she
have
was
said-
not the one. That's what I was talking about navigating to. She was not the one that imposed those eras in the world where they came and killed people to become slaves. The Middle Passage. I quoted this man the other day, Daniel Defoe, who said that without slave trade, without African slave, there's no America today. There's no America today. There's no Britain in its grandiose self.
Europe.
I said they gave
Absolutely.
us diabetes because they brought diabetes into the world because with the sugar plantation, they started making sugar and giving us what we call English breakfast today, where everything about it, whether it's pancake, everything is sugar.
It's sugar.
It's sugar. So they gave us diabetes without creating those plantations. There's no diabetes.
And all these rich plantations were built on the blood and sweat of
Black people.
black people then.
Black
Africans.
Africans, they were kidnapped, stolen, bought, and taken to the Americas. But, let's be very honest with ourselves. Some of our ancestors, too, partook in the contrivance because...
No.
Right.
We cannot deny that. Because... We cannot deny that. But if they did not come...
the
pretext
if
of
they
the
did not
bombardment...
come for that, there will be no elaboration.
The pretext for the bombardment of Lagos was as a result of the fact that King Kosoko refused to agree to the abolition of slave trade.
Yes.
And Akintoye was ready to agree to it. And that was why...
That's why we have the Lagos was fine. We divided into... That's 1861. No, 1841.
1851.
51, but that was
The Treaty of the Session took place in 1861.
61 was the annexation, yes.
Yeah. So, basically, I'm sitting there now thinking, you know what, we're blowing grammar. In those days, my mother was a stark illiterate in Mushi, and when she was sending me to school, and I would join her at the market store in the evening, any white person that came into this, she would say, Adisa, speak English, because I was sending you to school, and whatever English I spoke, she would be happy and be gloating. You know what? For whatever it was worth, this is my attitude to life.
They are the gains.
The gains. Look, and if you want to go historical, and if you want to be very forensic about some of the madnesses and some of the inhumanities, some of the deprivations that happened in history, you know what? We may not even have a society, because you want me to bring you back to Yoruba land. I know you are the Yoruba man, but if I bring you...
Shekiri, man.
Oh, sorry.
Still Delta. Right.
If I want to bring you back to Yoruba land, you want to go into Yoruba history and the devastating... We fought a war for 80 years, Kiriji War. Because you know what? The Yoruba interland, the Jeshas and the Ekitis, felt, these Ibadons were being too despotic over us. They are jealous of the... They are jealous. And 80 years. It was not until the intervention of Governor Carter of Lagos that brought, Kiriji War. So I'm sitting there now thinking, you know what?
But that is a war in which everybody suffered. The Yoruba was spread all over the place. Everybody suffered. Even Ibadan suffered. Ibadan got into a place where he got into a rot.
Ibadan got into so many wars.
I got into a rot. Yes.
I know. But like Lobdani once said, we must avoid looking at the past with rose-tinted prism.
Okay, and like it has also been argued, there's so many arguments now that
you agree with me by that Lodeni quote.
Right, that Uju
I don't want to win an argument with you. I need to put things in perspective.
all right. Well, indeed, Uju Anya's stance had sprung up a lot of arguments here and there. But for the role of the Queen, or the role that people say she ought to have played more, it has also sprung up the argument as to, is the throne now, the British throne, is it as ceremonial as people, call it? On one hand, when it suits us, people say the British throne is ceremonial. And then on the other hand, we see that, or we hear that it's not as weak as people call it. Otherwise, why will the role of the Queen, which, by the way, had, been argued for and against, some said, okay, she allowed the provision of, troops of arms. sent to the Nigerian government, you know, during during the Biafra against the other side. So what do you make of that argument?
Ever since Charles I that was decapitated during the Cromwellian Revolution, the monarchy has lost its direct power to be in control.
Yeah.
And we now have a constitutional monarchy. And the perfect example of constitutional monarchism was Queen Elizabeth II. She was there to be seen for the ceremonials, but she did not have any functional power of government.
Titular.
She was just titular. She was indeed, for the benefit of some of the people watching us this morning, she was indeed the titular head of state of Nigeria between October 1st, 1960 to October 1st, 1963, when we adopted the Republican Constitution. So I'm sitting there now, and in that function, she was represented by one Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Governor General of Nigeria, representing Her Majesty the Queen between October 1st, 1960 to October 1st, 1963. So she lived the ceremonial, the majestic ceremonials of it, which my American, they are very disrespectful in the age of Trump. You see how she was talking about Her Majesty the Queen, God bless her. So, and you know, Professor Anya shares the same this thing, blue passport with her. They are not very respectful. They know they are Trumpians. But you know what? The fact is that within the context of those limitations, did I get him back? Don't tell him.
He's here. He will speak for himself.
When I was coming, I brought Mufude Njaramoni Gumbe, Tajo from Mushin. They're waiting outside.
But what happens now? Enter King Charles III. What happens now? Some have said perhaps she was an old lady. King Charles too, at in his 70s, too, cannot be said to be young, but he said the number of years that he has left, only known to God, he will give his all to serving humanity. What happens now? Barbados has left the Commonwealth. Jamaica, we saw their stance right on the day of the Queen's death. The larger chunk of the Jamaican population refused to mourn her. What permutations are you seeing as to what happens now in the Commonwealth?
His Majesty King Charles III is still the head of state of countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and collectively about 14 other countries, including a number of Caribbean states. We live in an age now where technology has demystified the mystique that he spoke earlier on. It used to be, let the light not be shone too much on the magic, but technology has demystified that. You now get to see every step taken by royals. You now get to see all the, and you know what? Inevitably, you will see beyond a royal. Before we came on, a major royal will not be able to be attired in the sartorial of the military sartorial that is quite related to the family because of incidents in America. And some persons are in jail. Somebody committed suicide because of the case. So I'm sitting there wanting to believe that King Charles III had the longest tutelage in learning to be king. And, you know, in his youthful days, he would bear with me, he used to speak so vociferously about the environmental issues, about architecture, but now he's a bit more circumspect. And I hope he must have learned a lot from the mother who, in 70 years plus, was, as I used to refer to her, the governess of her emotions. Because the Queen never publicly emoted, except in 1992, even in a very sober speech read in 1992 when she said it was a annus horribilis because two of her children separated, Windsor Castle got burnt, and a lot of historic assets.
Horribilis, a horrible year.
Horrible, yeah.
He even speaks Latin.
No. We must give it to the royalty in England. For being able to maintain over the centuries all of this.
Keep it together somehow.
It's very good. But when you have a lot of money that you've stolen from the sweat and treasure of other people, and the money is piling, and you don't have much to do, you expect that there's enough to go around. There's so much for everybody's greed and so on. Yeah. No, I'm not landed. I'm not landed. I can give them that credit that they've done that. People should remember that this crown you have there is a combined crown. This was, I think, 1707 or so when the Scottish crown and that of English came together. That was also a consequence of the Glorious Revolution of 1688, where everything was made in such a way that the crown is no longer a power on the throne, but the power now goes to Whitehall. Where you have the Prime Minister.
Walpole became the first Prime Minister of Her Majesty.
Yes.
We must remember that in the UK, the Prime Minister is first Prime Minister of Her Majesty, and the Parliament is our Parliament because she is the human representative of the sovereignty that we, the people, have in Nigeria or in America. It is residual.
That's why we have to be careful not to mistake the symbolism for the power. That is what some people are saying. But what I'm saying is that the symbolism is
you are using the mistake of the power to overlambaste the
No. There was a history to that symbolism.
All right,
the symbolism had power and symbolism before it had symbolism.
You will save me from
me. Since Thursday last week. Okay, so earlier on we were talking about Sam.
Yes, I was saying that. I was trying to ask you, this idea of people going Google-eyed over what is going on in
the UK right now.
These people were our colonizers. Is it that we are bonding with our oppressors that, this man is oppressing us, we love him so much because he has already taken away our mind? I remember during the Second World War, de Gaulle, when he ran away from France, he went to England and he wanted to start the free French. He went to meet the colonizers. He came to Senegal. He came to so many of these French West African countries, to Gabon and all of those places, to recruit people to fight against their own oppressors. And these people, it's just like you are meeting your victims and asking them to fight for you who are also a victim. So you have become a slave of a slave, and you are ready to fight for the liberation of your master, who's another slave. So I see that irony. So do you see what is going on as some form of, bonding? What they call it Stockholm syndrome. Bonding with your oppressor.
Ever since.
Yeah, we have it in The Tempest. I'm sure you read the play The Tempest, where the character, what's his name again, the son of the witch, who said, "How fine my master is."
Ever since the coronation of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, which was the first coronation that was shown on TV, a new equation came into the public space, and that is the equation of using the ceremonials to hold the global audience. You must remember that Prince Charles's marriage to Diana was one of the most watched of our era.
That was my introduction to royalty.
Was one of the most watched.
And it didn't stop. Prince William, Middleton wedding, Harry, Meghan, it didn't stop.
And I've always said this to people: the biggest production company in the world the biggest production family in the world is actually the monarchy, because they have perfected the art. The British government has perfected the art of using the soft power of the monarchy, especially when it is sent out through images and pictures to the world. So I'm sitting there now, like we shared before we came on camera. If it wasn't for the task that my wife is on to now, she probably would have been in England just wanting to stand by Buckingham Gate and be watching. But, you know, maybe because of my Muslim background, you know, life has moved on. But what the point I'm trying to make is that the degree to which the TV, the degree to which the media is even helping to sell the images, can you blame the oppressed for wanting more?
All right.
And beloving the so-called perceived oppressor?
It's not perceived, they're a process. Eh?
All right.
They're using what they call the soft power, you said. Professor Joseph Nye of Harvard University really expressed, he conceptualized the idea of soft power. That England that is not number one in hard power, not number two, not number three, not number four, I think it's number 5 in power in the world. Looks like when it comes to soft power, it looks like number one, almost fighting against America with part of Hollywood and all of that. America is still number one generally in soft power,
Yeah,
but the monarchy as an institution
is not even only the monarchy. Look at football. Look at the Premiership. Look at the image of the Premiership relative.
They are very good. America learned a lot from them, from British, and took it as if Britain learned it from them. That's what they call the anxiety.
All right,
that's what they call the anxiety of.
So you can get your own back.
All right, gentlemen, we'll let you go.
Always a pleasure to be on your side.
Enriching conversation with you.
These days, when you bring me here, don't let
you
it.
You just have to brace up. You have to brace up. You have to brace up. All right, Bola Oba, always a pleasure with you. Thank you very much.